Hello friends, Decimus here with a new build video. This one is for my ranged Magicka Templar that I've been playing a lot in this patch. The build has extremely good ranged burst and a strong execute to secure kills with. The survivability with this build varies largely on the amount of Thrassian stacks, the namesake of this build, but it's surprisingly good thanks to frost staff blocking, cleanse and a powerful burst heal. Proper positioning and line of sighting is of course necessary since this is not a tank build. Sometimes the saying offense is the best defense also rings very true when playing this build, as you can simply outdamage the opponent trying to kill you. When it comes to sustain, that is largely based on meditate. The build is most suited for noCP and CP group vs group gameplay, but you can do anything from 1v1 to 1vx with it. You can even zerg with the build, but please don't. So let's begin with the gear. Thrassian Strangler is the namesake of this build. It's a very cool set added in Greymoor that can more than double the spell damage we have. To answer a few common questions about the set, doesn't make you too squishy? No, not really. The downside scales up with the spell damage and isn't very noticeable until later on. When you do have a lot of stacks, you can also hit people very hard with your CC and force them onto defense, at which point they're dead. You can also still survive decently well by blocking and healing if needed. Well, doesn't it take too long to stack it in a BG? Not really. If you get 2 killing blows, what you have is 1 piece item that gives you 300 spell damage, the equivalent of Juliana's 5 piece. 3 killing blows and you're looking at 450 spell damage, so roughly the equivalent of New Moon Acolyte without the cost increase downside. Instead you're taking 6% more damage, which is not that much. 5 killing blows and you have a set stronger than Alchemist with 100% uptime, but you take 10% more damage. At just 6 stacks, you're actually doing more damage with non-crits than you would with Magicka Ring, and significantly more with crits of course. It's also worth noting that while you do get a negative healing taken modifier while wearing this set, all of the heals on Magicka Templar scale based on spell damage, and thus the self-healing stays around the same between 1 stack and 20 stacks. All potential group healing however is massively buffed by Thrassian, as the healing modifier you get is for healing received, not healing done. The second set we're using is Kalurian's Legacy. This set pairs very well with the playstyle and is extremely easy to land with Javelin stun. What this set actually does, it puts the person you're focusing down into execute range, at which point they just get beamed down and you gain understack for Thrassian, making this process easier and easier. It's especially powerful early on, but you still notice its impact even at higher Thrassian stack counts. The set procs very fast and very reliably due to relatively high crit chance with this build, along with multiple simultaneous hits with the Enchant, Burn Light passive, Javelin, Dark Flare, Beam which sticks multiple times per second and so on. On the back bar we have Ropes of the Hist. The set provides that little bit of extra survivability just by being on the back bar and does so without compromising too many offensive stats, as you can still gain both the spell damage and the magic on the front bar by having 4 body or jewelry pieces of this set slotted. His sap usually winds up being around 25% of healing, so it definitely helps. Make sure you use a frost staff on the back bar, as this build makes good use of the Magicka blocking with the Tri-Focus passive, which then lets you save lots of stamina for dodge rolls and CC breaks, which form a huge part of the survivability with this build. Lastly, to kind of tie this build together, we have 2 pieces of Slime Crow. This set scales extremely well with the high spell damage we are able to accumulate with this build, and is thus easily the best offensive monster set we can utilize with this build. Traits should all be impenetrable on armor pieces, sharpened on main bar Inferno staff, and powered on off bar Ice staff. I like having arcane jewelry for a bigger magic pool, but you can go triune or infused as well, it doesn't make a huge difference and is down to preference really. Armor enchant should be Triglyphs, on jewelry spell damage, on front bar weapon Shockcliff, for a better chance at minor vulnerability, and on back bar weapon damage for a slightly bigger heals or damage should you swap back to front bar. So that's everything with the gear. As food we're using Vivid Sugar Skulls for the higher base stat pools, which pair very nicely with the burst oriented playstyle running Meditate, and the additional health regen is extremely powerful in this patch. As potions we use the Essence of Detection, as we already gained Major Prophecy from Inner Light, and this lets us counter Nightblades. Lastly, as Mundus we have the Steed to help out with the positioning and also for the additional health regen to boost the survivability. Alright, moving on to skills, we have Aurora Javelin, our main CC that hits extremely hard and ignores target's mitigation. Often deals as much if not more damage than an actual spam ball. thanks to the 40% damage modifier based on range to target. Highest damage non-ultimate range CC in the game, even before you factor in the possible Burning Light passive proc. It can also be used to get kills with full damage thanks to the knockback, which is also invaluable for kiting opponents. Point is, if you ever decide to unslot anything on this build, make sure it's not this skill. Inner Light, here mostly to buff up our damage across the board, but can also be used to reveal nearby night blades if Detection Potion is on cooldown. Elemental Drain helps against tankier targets, lets you sustain better against them, and makes it more likely they die to the burst combo thanks to the extra penetration you get. Radiant Glory, also known as J-Beam, our execute deals huge undodgeable damage if your target is in execute range. You can precast it even slightly before they get there, if you see a Calorian proc about to land, for example. We are using the heal morph as it's very likely the Magicka pool won't be high when we're executing, and also because the heal based on damage down scales very well with Thrassian. Dark Flare, our main nuke skill with this build, hits hard and applies major default on the target. Crucial component of the burst and gameplay with this build, which I'll explain in a little. Ice Comet, our offensive ultimate that can be thrown in as part of the burst combo. Usually massively overkill, but gets the job done. At this point I feel like I should explain the gameplay a little and how this build plays. The main burst combo with this setup is Dark Flare into Javelin into Radiant Glory, which we'll refer to as Beam. Dark Flare being a cast time ability allows you to chain the next skill right after it finishes casting, similar to how Snipe works, as the global 1 second cooldown begins at the start of the cast. This combined with Calorian, which is very likely to land thanks to the Javelin, is more than likely to put your opponent into execute range, where they get beamed down. Note that against some opponents and or based on Thrassian stacks, it is enough to just throw the Javelin and beam as that'll be enough damage. You don't necessarily need the Dark Flare. It is also worth keeping in mind when you can go for the burst. Usually save times are when you're not being focused, or when you've just CC broken and are high enough health, as that means you can cast your entire combo uninterrupted, since it can't be interrupted during CC immunity, and your opponent is likely to try and kill you, only to get outbursted, so they're more vulnerable during that time. If your opponent has no interrupts such as Crushing Shock, Venom Arrow or Shrouded Daggers, you can cast a bit more freely by kiting and being out of the bash range. Sometimes you can also lead with the Javelin and follow up with the Dark Flare if you feel like you're likely to get interrupted. You can also try and bait the interrupt by meditating, after which you heal up and go for the burst. It is also possible to skip the Dark Flare component entirely and just drop a meteor on your target. Javelin them to make the meteor hit and then beam them. With a Calorian proc that's very likely to burst even a blocking target. In the end, there's lots of variations when it comes to different combos with this build, but most important thing is knowing your offensive windows and what works against which kind of opponent. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's move on to the off-bar skills. Race Against Time, very important for mobility. The skill gets rid of snares and roots, gives us major expedition and amplifies with the damage with minor force as well. Very useful. Channeled Focus. Our armor buff also helps with sustain, especially with Frost Staff, as the magical restoration from the skill happens even while blocking. Deep Thoughts, important not just for sustain but also for survivability, as there are times when you can use major protection to mitigate incoming damage. Also used to bait interrupts. Extended Ritual, gets rid of bad stuff, not much else to say about it. The heal over time in the circle is also very helpful, especially when meditating for resources while taking damage. Honor the Dead, the main burst heal with this build, still heals for a decent amount. And lastly, as ultimate, Temporal Guard, panic button that helps you survive impossible situations. You can also use the auto morph, as Templar already gets minor protection from Spear Wall passive. I prefer Temporal Guard however, as the uptime on minor protection is pretty bad while on defensive for a long period of time, or when you're just not using the Javelin for a while. But I've had many situations where having the automorph would have saved me, so you can go either way, I'd say. That's the skill layout for this build. When it comes to CPs, this is what I'd go with. As for which race would best suit this build, I personally go for Altmar. Not just for the higher maximum offensive stats, but also for the damage reduction while using cast or channeled abilities, which winds up being pretty impactful on this particular setup. Other races should work as well, but wouldn't be quite as optimal, with maybe the exception of Kashid, as the extra critical damage modifier would scale very well with our Thrassian spell damage, and the health regen part of their passives is a lot stronger now, due to healing nerfs in Greymoor. You can go Vampire with this build. I prefer Race Against Time and Sprinting to Mist Form when it comes to survivability, but that is definitely an alternative. I wouldn't go past stage 2 Vampire, however, as you'd be losing too much health regen at that point, and the build isn't made to survive long at low health pools to make good use of the Undeath passive. If you do go Vampire, replace Race Against Time with Elusive Mist so that you still gain offensive power from your Major Expedition skill thanks to Strike from the Shadows passive, which gives you 300 spell damage as you come out of Mist form. If you followed the guide so far, these are the stats you should have. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little build video. If you have any questions or feedback regarding the build, don't hesitate to leave a comment below or ask me on Twitch or Twitter. And yeah, that's pretty much it. See you all next time. Bye.